All right. Okay, let's call this meeting of the Carver School Committee to order on January 25th, 2021 at 7:02. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
1 second.
Yep.
Yeah.
The flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for which it
which
stands,
stands one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, first up is comments from the general public. Scott, you want to?
Yep, so if we could remind everybody, this meeting is being held virtually in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We're meeting using the Zoom webinar format. So at this time, if anybody would be interested in participating in public comment, if they could let us know in the chat, that would be great.
Give me a minute.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Again, if anybody's interested in participating in public comment, if they could let us know in the chat, put their name into the chat, that would be great.
I just scanned the participants list too. I didn't see any hands up, just in case I didn't get that.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's move on then. No public comment tonight. Comments from the APC.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good, Tom. How are you?
Good. I'll be brief. I just want to acknowledge we did start negotiations. We're in the process of beginning it. I was not able to attend the first meeting. Me and my family just had our second child, a boy, last week. So,
Congratulations.
so like James, coffee is at a key at this point right now. I will be watching the meeting, but yeah. So I look forward to having conversations at the table. So that's all.
Great.
All right, thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to Student Council update with Quentin Kittredge, if Quentin is here.
Just give me a second to look in the attendees. I do not see Quentin in the group tonight.
Okay. If he happens
Just hold on 1 second. Let me look again, just to make sure. I want to make sure I'm missing. I'm not missing him. Nope, I do not see him here this evening.
All right, well, if he does happen to pop back on, does anybody have any objection for us taking him later if he does come on?
Yeah, he might have to get out of work.
Oh, that's fine. If he makes it, great. Okay, if not, that's what we understand. Okay, let's move on to approval of minutes for November 19th. This is open session meetings, both of these, November 19th, 2020 and January 11th, 2021. Would anybody like to make a motion for November 10th? Oh, sorry, November 19th, 2020?
Move to accept the motion, the minutes for November 19th, 2020.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any concerns, comments, questions about those minutes? Don't see any. Okay, this is a roll call vote. We'll start with Jason Greenwood.
Jason Greenwood, aye.
Stephanie Clarity.
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Ben Pratt.
Jen Pratt, aye.
James O'Brien.
James is still muted.
James O'Brien, aye.
There you go. And Andy Cottarelli, aye. It's unanimous. They are accepted. I would entertain a motion for the January 11th, 2021 open session minutes.
Move to accept the January 11th, 2021 open session minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, corrections on those? Seeing none. Okay, another roll call vote. Jen Pratt? Oh, there she is. Is she frozen?
Jen Pratt, aye.
Okay, Stephanie Clarity?
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
James O'Brien?
James O'Brien, aye.
Jason Greenwood?
Jason Greenwood, aye.
Okay, and Andy Cotterelli, aye as well. It's unanimous. Those are accepted. Okay, now we're going to move on to communications. Item A, vaccination letter to the governor.
Okay, so there's been a lot of discussion about vaccinations and specifically vaccinations for teachers and staff. And there's been a lot of questions about how that process is actually going to work. So last week, a group of superintendents from the South Shore got together and actually wrote a letter to the governor. So I was a co-signer of this letter, and I wanted to share it with the school committee. The other signees were the superintendents from Rockland, East Bridgewater, Cohasset, Abington, Hull, Middleborough, Norwell, Randolph, and Mashpee, which are all the teams in the South Shore League. And basically the letter, I won't read the letter to you, but what we're advocating for is that they allow school districts and school nurses to be involved in the vaccination of teachers. You know, I've spoken with our nurses. They're interested in being involved in the process. We're basically saying here that we have the infrastructure and the ability that if they get us the vaccine, that we would be able to vaccine our staff in-house. So this letter went to the governor over the weekend from this group of superintendents. And there's a larger group of superintendents on the South Shore, and really throughout Massachusetts trying to advocate, trying to get teachers and all staff working in the schools vaccinated more quickly, and having us, be involved in the process. DESE did release some information today saying that by the end of the week, actually, they're going to put out a plan of how they intend to vaccinate teachers by the end of this week, so we would know, because they're saying that phase 2 is going to start next Monday, February 1st, and teachers and staff are in phase 2. So I think we might have some information coming quickly in terms of how the vaccination process may work for our staff in the Carver Public Schools. And ultimately, when we sent this letter at the end of last week, we didn't necessarily know that DESE was going to come out today and say that they were going to have their plan out by the end of this week. We're really just trying to advocate for getting teachers and the employees of the school districts, obviously for us, the Carver Public Schools, vaccinated as soon as possible, and saying that we're willing to help out and be part of that process. So I don't have any answers as to what that process is going to look like, but I think I'll have some more answers by the end of this week. And definitely, I think by the time we meet again in a couple weeks, and just wanted to bring this communication and this discussion to the school committee's attention.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on that letter, Scott's presentation?
I just want to say thank you for sending it.
Okay,
So,
James?
Thank you for doing that, Scott.
Thank you, Stephanie. Sorry.
No, I'm okay right now, thanks.
Okay, I thought I saw your microphone go off. Okay, sorry, Stephanie, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay, thank you, Scott. Scott, do you happen to anticipate a response from the governor on that, or?
I do not think we'll necessarily get a direct response. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll get a response from a representative. I do think it will be interesting that, as I said, the commissioner in his weekly update put out today that by the end of this week, superintendents and school districts will have a more formalized plan of what the vaccination process would look like. So more information to come. I know we've had several staff members asking our nurses, asking the administrators, asking myself if we had any information of what the process was going to look like. And really, our answer up until today has been no. And I really don't have any more information today, but that information is forthcoming. But I would be surprised if we got a direct response from the governor. It would be appreciated, but would be surprised.
Right, James, go ahead.
Hey, Scott, I guess I have more of a technical question than anything, but has any of the discussion involved around the fact that if it's the 2-shot process, that the second shot is tending to show symptoms and any confusions that might come along with that, or people needing time off during that? Or is there like a discussion of how the process will go, looking at what's been happening with it so far, or not even to that point yet?
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet of having, obviously I think they are requiring that you have your second shot in the same place you have your first shot. So if we're involved in the first round of vaccines in the school district, then obviously we'd have to be involved in the second round. And then, I haven't seen a lot of information. I know I've heard some anecdotal in terms of some people having some issues with the second shot. So we haven't gotten to that planning part of, will that lead to staff being out and what impacts that will have on the school. But it's definitely something we'll have to take into consideration.
Okay, moving on, we'll go to personnel, reports from the superintendent. Item A, personnel updates.
Hey, we had 2 resignations since we last met. Vanessa Coquinos as a food service worker and Michelle Costa as an ESP at the elementary school. And then we'd also like to introduce our new Chief of Operations and Finance Officer, Ron Griffin. I've actually promoted Ron to a panelist and have him joining us here right now. Let's see, Ron, are you able to turn your...
Can you hear me okay?
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to make sure that you were able to talk to us, Ron. So I'm pleased to introduce, I'd like to welcome Ron Griffin as the new Chief of Operations and Finance Officer for the Carver Public Schools. Ron comes to us with a really strong background. He has a Master's in Educational Leadership from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. He is certified as a School Business and Finance Director and as a Superintendent. He's been a teacher of science, a curriculum coordinator. He's served as the Deputy Director and Assistant Superintendent for the Foxborough Regional Charter School, and also as the Superintendent of the Scituate Public Schools. Throughout the interview process, Ron has impressed everyone that he's worked with in terms of his knowledge in terms of educational systems, financial systems. He's demonstrated really effective communication skills, and really an ability in the short period of time we've got to know him through the interview process to connect with people. And we're really excited to have the opportunity to have someone with Ron's experience and expertise and background join our leadership team. Just a little bit about the process. We had scheduled interviews for 5 candidates. We had an interview team that involved administrators, members of the school committee, staff that would be working with Ron. That interview team selected 2 finalists. The 2 finalists came for site visits to the school district, spent time with Brad, spent time with myself, toured both buildings, met staff in both buildings, and through that process, we selected Ron, and we're excited to have Ron join us here. So I'm just going to give Ron a minute to introduce himself and say hello to the committee, and then the committee maybe to say hello to Ron, and then we'll go from there. So Ron.
Scott, thank you for the wonderful introduction and the warm welcome. And thank you to this committee for your confidence in me and this opportunity. Scott shared a little bit about me. I'm passionate about education. I'm a geek when it comes to educational finance. I love it. I bring background in educational leadership, financial management, project management, school facilities. I think with some of that background, it helps me just understand the perspective that when we're looking at the numbers in a budget, that they represent more than just dollars and cents. Those are your kids, those are your students, your staff, your taxpayers in the community. And so I feel honored, privileged to have the opportunity to serve, the Carver Public Schools, this community, and look forward to working with this team. So I thank you for the time.
And Ron is going to be able to start with us on February 1st. Yep. Tonight is not Brad's last meeting for us. So Brad, we made the agreement when Brad moved on to Plymouth that we were crossing over some dates. And Brad's going to kind of stay with us through the budget process. So he'll be joining us in future meetings. So we'll have the opportunity to say goodbye to Brad in a meeting coming up. But Ron is going to be able to start full-time with us next Monday.
Great. Well, welcome, Ron. Appreciate you, joining the team. We hope you have a great career here with us, and we look forward to working with you closely and on finance. We're a small community, but you come very highly recommended, from people I've talked to and stories I've read about you. You seem, like you said, very passionate about the kids' educational process and in all different aspects. And that's a good thing. So I look forward to working with you. Anybody else? Jen?
I just want to say welcome. Hang on, I'm getting feedback.
That's okay. Thank you all for the warm welcome. I'm sincerely excited about the opportunity. Scott and Brad have been incredible in terms of helping this transition be a smooth one. And I look forward to being part of this team. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron. Jen, why don't we hold on for a second? Stephanie, why don't you go ahead, you with your hand up, and I'll go back to Jen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry, Jen, you're having technical difficulties. I just wanted to say that I'm sure I speak on everyone's behalf that we're excited to welcome you. Thank you very much for joining our district. I think you picked a great place to land. I think this district has done a lot of great things over this past year, especially. So I look forward to seeing your contributions come to life. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jen, you want to try again?
Yes. Okay,
There
does
you
it sound
go.
better?
Good.
Yes.
Ron, welcome to the team. I look forward to getting to know you. You're joining at an exciting time. I joined school committee last year, so I also joined during an exciting time. We're using the word exciting to promote positivity. And so look forward to navigating these next few years with you.
Same. Thank you, Jane.
Okay. Let me see if anybody else would like to. Oh. Okay. Well, Ron, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you, and hopefully next time maybe it'll be in person. But this is great. And I look forward to working with you. I'm sure the rest of the team does as well.
All right, thanks, Ron. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, let me get back to my agenda here. Okay, so now we are moving on to item B, innovations pathway updates, if I'm not mistaken.
And so Meredith's going to give us a brief update on the work that's been happening to build out our CTA pathways to middle high school. So welcome to Meredith. I don't believe she has a formal slide presentation, but just going to kind of talk to us for a few minutes about what's been happening with pathways.
Yes, I don't think that's ever happened before. I usually come with a slide presentation because I'm joined at the hip, right? So instead, I'll just give you a quick update without the visual and let you know that a lot of work is going on in terms of our career pathways at the middle high school. And I just want to give a shout out to our amazing administration and department chairs and teachers that are spending a ton of time working on this. Since we gave you a presentation last, we've been working on our program of studies for next year. So naturally, part of that process is to look at how our pathways are progressing and to really continue to build that foundation. We're excited about the variety of courses that will be offered next year. And we're so excited to distribute the program of studies. We think that parents and students will be in awe of the different opportunities available. Additionally, to make these different pathways happen, there are obviously added expenses in terms of equipment and materials. And I just wanted to recognize Stacey Waitner, who is the head of our biotech pathway, or is working in concert with that group. And she wrote a special grant through Mass BioEd that provided us with over $2,000 of COVID mini grant lab equipment. And what that does is it gives our students the opportunity to observe in real time how DNA is transcribed to messenger RNA, and that's translated into proteins. The nice thing about that is it emulates the same processes that are currently being used in labs around the world as the COVID vaccines are developed. And it gives our students a real world, tangible connection and how what they're learning in science really is being used to shape and oftentimes solve problems, obviously in this case the coronavirus. So it's cutting edge biotechnology. We want to thank MassBio for that and for the training that they provided as well. Additionally, we are getting ready to send in our Innovation Pathway Part B grant in the middle of February. There has been a ton of work that's being done by guidance counselors as they finish their MyCap training and work on how to counsel with students in these pathways and for the students' four-year plan so that there's a clearly articulated path for post-secondary outcomes for either college and career or college or career. And just want to recognize Dave Aruda, Michelle Littleton, Trish Winslow, both Christina Nolan and Chrissy McKenna, and the many folks that are putting in extra time and energy to make sure that that's clearly articulated. And on that same note, I want to recognize Tammy Miller, our career counselor, who has been working on this committee too, as she starts developing and creating additional internship opportunities in manufacturing, engineering, and technology. And along that same lines, we received a Connecting Activities grant, which is allowing us to host 2 after-school clubs through that grant. And I just want to put in a plug for any parents that may be listening who have students in the high school. These clubs are available after school. They're free of charge. The first one is a manufacturing, engineering, technology club. And the second is a graphic design multimedia club. And both of those include virtual tours and career panels. For example, the engineering technology club has already been working a little bit with SpaceX and with iRobot out of Bedford and Woods Hole organization out of Woods Hole, and looking at different robots and robotic functions in those experiences. And there are more great, exciting opportunities to come. And the Graphic Multimedia Design Club is awesome. It's going to be run by a real-life graphic designer who has career experience, but also can help students understand the visual arts and how that plays into every aspect of our modern world. And then lastly, we're working on how to advertise all these positive changes and developments. Oftentimes we have parent meetings that coincide with course selection, and we're trying to figure out how to do that effectively amidst COVID. And so parents of high school students and 8th grade students will definitely be getting more information, but we're really interested in helping spread the word to middle school and elementary parents who in a couple of years will have these amazing opportunities that really are giving Carver the opportunity to stand out as unique compared to other area schools. So there will be more information on that to come, and I'm excited to answer any questions you may have.
And the only thing I would add in, Meredith, is that, that I know they're working right now in conjunction with Area 58 and the teachers to do some promotional videos for each of the pathways. And one of the thoughts processes I had was, obviously these promotional videos will be shown to parents and students, but I'd love to bring them over the next few months to school committee. They're looking at like doing like a 1 to 2 minute promotional video, almost like a commercial for each of the pathways. And I thought it might be a nice way to keep it alive in school committee meetings to kind of bring one a meeting and show the promotional video.
Well, thank you, Meredith, for all that, and it's very exciting. You know, you might want to, I know that Old Colony has a Facebook page and social media pages. I'm not sure about what else they have, but on the 2 Carver pages, I see their ads for their classes. They feature a student, they feature certain, disciplines they're getting into, and they put it out to the community. So maybe a suggestion, just maybe do something similar, maybe, I don't know.
We do have a Facebook page. We'll probably be posting those videos that we create on the Facebook page out for the whole community to see.
Great. Anybody have any questions or comments on Meredith's presentation? Let me look through the line here.
Stephanie raised her hand.
Stephanie raised her hand, okay. Ms. Stephanie.
Thank you. Hi, Meredith. I just wanted to say thank you for sharing. Thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you to everyone that you mentioned that's been working so hard on bringing this to life for our students. I know I'm super excited about it. I'm sure everyone else's. So I just wanted to say thank you for the updates, and I look forward to continuing to hear more exciting news as things continue to develop. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All righty. Thank you, Meredith. Very exciting. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item C, the National Association for the Education of Young Children accreditation.
Yeah, so I just need to stop the share for a second. Actually, I got to bring up Paula Foley, who's going to be presenting, so I need to bring her on as a panelist.
Every time you say panelist, Scott, I think we're on like a game show.
Yeah. All right, so Paula's just joined us on the panel. Hi, Paula.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Meredith
Paula.
is a hard act to follow, so hope you're all doing well tonight.
All right,
Yeah,
and so the elementary school just completed the NAEYC accreditation process this fall, and Paula's going to talk to us a little about the process and the standards and the report that's been issued for the school district. And I'd just like to thank everybody who's worked on that process. It's they've done outstanding work, including Paula is the leader of that process. So Paula, with that, I will turn it over to you, and just let me know when you need me to move through the slides if I'm not staying up with you.
Okay, well, we can go on to the first one, or the second, actually.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of background. The National Association for the Education of Young Children, it's a national organization that offers accreditation to early childhood programs who demonstrate commitment to quality programming and continuous quality improvement. I like to think of this in a way as sort of like a mini NEASC. They focus on age birth through 8. But our accreditation has focused on preschool and kindergarten. But they believe all young children can thrive and learn in a society dedicated to ensuring they reach their full potential. They promote high quality early learning for all children, again, birth through 8. And they advance a diverse, dynamic early childhood profession and supports all of those who care for and educate young children. We have been accredited by NAEYC since 2011. The accreditation is good for a 5-year period, assuming, of course, we continue to meet their standards. So the process is a little bit lengthy. To attain accreditation, early childhood programs must commit to ensuring that their environment, policies, and practices are continually aligned with NAEYC's early learning standards. The accreditation process begins about 1.5 years before the current accreditation expires. So until now, we were accredited through February 1st. So we started the process probably about 1.5 years ago. It's a pretty extensive self-assessment process. There are 10 standards, and you can see those listed: relationships, curriculum, teaching, assessment of child progress, health, staff competencies, preparation and support, families, community relationships, physical environment, leadership, and management. And those numbers in parentheses, those represent the criterion under each standard. So altogether, there's approximately, well, exactly, I guess, if we add them, 376 criterion that are required, not required, but that are listed for us to measure up against or self-assess toward. Some of them are for infant and toddlers, but most of them apply to preschool and kindergarten. The competency in meeting the standards. So what do we have to do? Each grade level that's being assessed, they need to develop a classroom portfolio. So we had a classroom portfolio for preschool and one for kindergarten. And there's also a program portfolio. And in addition to that, we have a site visit and we had someone come in to observe our program for 2 days. What we need to do to achieve accreditation, we have to meet all required items, 80% of rated items in each program standard, and 70% of rated items in each of the assessed classes. So during the site visit, the assessor comes in, and on the day of the visit, they randomly choose classes to visit, and the number of classes that are visited is dependent upon the total number of classes that you have. So we had 2 preschool and 2 kindergarten classes visited over those 2 days. So this is how did we do? These are the required items. You can see the item number on the left, which isn't really going to tell you very much. The source, how the standard was met, whether it was through classroom observation or program portfolio, the rating, and then on the other side, on the right-hand side, it's going to give you a little bit of a description. You'll notice that I said you needed to meet all of the standards, and you'll see that 3C6 and 3C7 say NA, and that is because it's a good thing. It's because during the observation, the person who was doing the visit, she did not observe children out of sight or out of sound of the staff in the classrooms. So that is why it's rated NA, and therefore we met that, that criterion. Program standards. So these are, we are assessed in program standards in each area. You'll see that there is a raw score and an adjusted score. And I'm happy and I'm proud to say that our adjusted score is 100% across the board. The lowest area was curriculum. These are the standards for which I was responsible. And it's, you know, it's due to a lot of hard work of everyone that we were able to do this. So there were no concerns there. In terms of assessed classes, on the left-hand side, you'll see that it says PS1 and PS2. I didn't identify the classes, but those are preschool classes, and K1, K2, those were the 2 kindergarten classrooms that were assessed. The overall score is listed there, 94, 95, 95, 96. Observation rate, pass rate is also listed, and then the classroom portfolio. So the overall score is an average of both the observation rate and the class portfolio rate. And if you look on the very right side, it says portfolio feedback above average, and that is in comparison to thousands of other portfolios that have been reviewed across the country. So they did a very nice job there. Again, all above average. Areas for improvement. Curriculum was one. It says no evidence observed. So this was when the assessor came. They did not observe certain things. It doesn't mean that we don't do them, but they didn't feel that there was sufficient evidence either in the portfolio, even though they're doing the observation, the portfolio kind of balances that out. But patterns in measurement and math, data collection in science, cultural diversity in visual and dramatic arts, or opportunities for learning about physical and geographic details in the community and social studies. So in parentheses, I've given a little bit of information. There were no related displays or lessons being taught in these areas at the time of the observation. The second one down talks about curriculum, and it says no evidence included in the classroom portfolio of physical and geographic details in the community. I do have to say there were photos that were in the portfolio that represented a kindergarten field trip to the bogs, and also field trip that was learning about the community and the fire department, et cetera, but there was no caption that identified it. So if you go back and you look at those pictures, you could understand why she might say there was no evidence, but I'm not concerned about that either. If we could go on. Okay. Teaching, no evidence observed, at least under there's a criterion about student work. The issue was at least half of the displays in the classroom should be of student work, and that was not observed. I will tell you that just in response to COVID, a lot of things have been removed from the classroom, so that could be part of it. And also, a lot of the teachers do have displays in the hallways, but when she went into classrooms, half of the displays were not made up of children's work. And then staff qualifications is the last one. In addition to the portfolio and the observation, I did have to upload some information to the NAEYC portal. Part of that is staff qualifications. And all of our staff meet Massachusetts requirements, but one staff member does not meet the standards established by NAEYC. So that is the reason for that. But out of all of them, I think that we did fairly well. So we are now accredited to February 1st of 2026. In order to maintain accreditation, there is an annual review, an annual report that's due. And we are subject to a surprise visit. That has not happened in my experience, but we are subject to that. And as I said, there is an annual report due every February in order to maintain for the next 5 years. The last slide just lists some of the people that were involved in this. Anne-Marie Blackton, Craig Lazan, and Lisa Wethington are the preschool teachers. Sarah Crump, Anne-Marie Kalanotis, Terry Sexton, Naomi Stahl, Kylie Thompson, and Bree Wall. They are the kindergarten teachers. Lindsay Swanton is actually a 4th grade special education teacher this year, but she was a preschool teacher last year, and she was responsible for putting together their portfolio. So I wanted to give a little shout out to her. And then, of course, Gina Russell, who is Ms. Janice's secretary and or administrative assistant. She helped out with kindergarten and put together all of their materials for them. So that was really helpful. And of course, Scott and Ruby have been very supportive throughout this process. It does take quite a lot of time, and I very much appreciate that.
So Paul, these are high standards for the district to meet. And in comparison, you had said that this was a super strong performance by the district and by our teachers through this round of accreditation. Those are really high scores. So I don't know if you want to reference that at all, or just again celebrate how well the district did in terms of the accreditation process for pre-K and K.
Well, it does take a lot. I will tell you, it's not an easy process. It does require a lot of time and effort on the teacher's part. If anyone were interested, I'd certainly be happy to share the portfolios with you, or the actual standards, but it is very time consuming. And the interesting thing about this year is that, first of all, we were visited during COVID, which kind of surprised me and isn't necessarily representative of all the great things that we do, because there are some limitations there. So that was interesting. Plus, they actually instituted a lot of new standards this year, took away some, added some. So it wasn't just kind of going through the process, if you will. It wasn't like we could look back on what we did before and say, oh yeah, we just need to tweak this or tweak that. It was really kind of starting all over. And the process is actually quicker. They don't give you as much time as they used to go through the self-assessment and the preparation process. So kudos to, like I said, to the teachers, because it was a lot of work, and they really rose to the occasion.
So again, thank you, Paul, to you and all the teachers and staff involved in the accreditation process.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Paula.
I don't have any questions, but I'd like to thank you in appreciation of all the work that goes into this. I know Scott can relate going through the NEASC when he was principal here too in the process. And I remember your discussions of how much went into that and how much work it really is. And it's a lot, and everybody involved really has to contribute for it to work. And clearly with the results that you got, I mean, everybody wasn't really just involved. They were really dedicated to it. And thanks to everybody who was part of that and making that happen and get the results that we got in that process. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Jen Pratt, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Hi, yes. So first of all, thank you. I think that's really great that we were able to score so well, and that is just another measure of how good our schools are. I'm just curious, other than, for lack of a better word, bragging rights, what does this accreditation get us? Does it make us available for additional grants or funding, or like what are the other benefits of having this accreditation? Just because I don't know, so I apologize if that's a...
It actually started, one of the reasons why we first did it was because we were the recipient of the full day kindergarten grant. And one of the requirements for the full day kindergarten grant in order to maintain it was to get accreditation through NAUIC. That was the first go round that we went through. Unfortunately, the kindergarten grant is no longer available, but you know, it's always beneficial to be rated a highly or a high quality program. There may be other grants that come down the line. It is kind of it's a prestigious acknowledgement, I guess. I don't know. I think it's just for ourselves. It is a good process to go through because every time you look at a different criteria, you're doing this self-assessment and you're comparing yourselves to these high standards. And you know, there are things that we've put in place as a result of this that might not have been in place had we not done it. You know, we've changed handbooks, we've changed the staff handbook, we've changed volunteer handbooks, we've changed a lot through this process and hopefully made them better.
And you know, building on what Paul just said, I think it's always good to hold yourself against a national standard and have an outside organization come in and rate you against that standard. And then the value is within the process itself. So going through the process, doing that self-assessment, as Paul said, revising and updating yourself, you know, what you're doing programmatically to meet the standards is really the important part of the process.
And I have to say, I found it very educational for myself. The school committee handbook is like, you know, my Bible. I think I've read it cover to cover.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie Cloherty, you have a comment?
Sorry, my mouse was asleep. Mrs. Foley, I just wanted to say thank you very much for all of your hard work and to all of the teachers and everyone that put time into this accreditation. I know that it really is a sign of how well our district is doing and how we continue to move forward. Just thank you very much, and I'm so proud for our school district, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Let's see. Okay, Paula, I'd like to say thank you as well. Ms. Foley, I'd like to, I want to say I appreciate you, all the hard work you and everyone has done for this, to achieve this goal. I had a question though on one thing. On the supplement, on the reports you do to get back to them on, Can you provide evidence of any of the areas that they didn't observe? Would that be of any positive benefit to our district at all, or is it just they'd have to observe it the next time they come around after 2026?
Generally, in the annual report, now they have made some changes, so I don't know if they will change this at all, but generally in the annual report, they will ask you to reflect on your accreditation report and whether or not you've made any changes in those areas. I don't think there's no process sort of to get back to them at this point about things that you've changed. It's really an extension of the self-assessment process for me to sort of look at this and say, okay, this is what they've said. Where do we go from here? And some of it I know is just kind of timing. Like I said, she was in there at a time in kindergarten where they either they weren't doing math that related, say, to measurement and data and patterning, and there was nothing in that she saw in the room that related to that. That doesn't mean they don't do it, you know.
Right.
And I can honestly say they do it. But,
Right. And like you said, coming during COVID was probably not the most opportune time.
that is true. And, you know, I did have some discussion with them about what they would likely see and what they wouldn't see. And, but again, that's what the classroom portfolio helps with too, because obviously they can't go on a field trip, but they can see the result of that in a portfolio. So
Well, thank you for answering that for me. And again, congratulations to yourself and everybody involved. Job well done.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Okay, let me see. Moving on, we're going to go to item D, student enrollment. Remote and hybrid.
Sorry about that as I just transitioned. So actually a couple of the members asked if we could have an update in this meeting. It's a good time to do it. Actually makes sense in terms of we're kind of halfway through the year. Where are we in terms of the number of students who are in the hybrid model, the number of students in the remote model, or the number of students who might be attending full in person because they're in an intensive special education program. And then do a little bit of comparison to how that was at the beginning of the year. And, you know, obviously these numbers reflect a lot of changes because we've actually had movement in and out. We've had students transition back into in-person, the hybrid model. We've had students transition to remote. We've had students go from remote to homeschool. We've had students go from hybrid to homeschool. We've had homeschool come back. So there's been a lot of shifting. So it's not all a straight line shift, if that makes sense. But it's good to look at the overall numbers. Interestingly enough, the numbers at the elementary school have actually declined. So we have more students doing in-person learning at the elementary school now than at the beginning of the school year. The numbers at the middle high school have increased. I will say generally, most people who are making a transition, they reference COVID in one way or the other. It's sort of like a reflection of how people feel about COVID in society. Some people are feeling more comfortable. Some people are feeling less comfortable with what's happening with COVID within the community. So those who are feeling more comfortable are saying, you know, we're going to transition from remote and try to go in person for a couple of days and join the hybrid model. Other families that are feeling less comfortable are saying, you know, cases are spiking. Cases are on the rise. We're going to transition to remote only. So we've had movement in both directions throughout the year. I will say that the movement's been almost like a slow trickle is the word I would use. We haven't had a massive shift at any one time period. So it's not that, you know, something happened and all of a sudden that next week we had a huge shift of students to remote or a huge shift of students to in-person. But it's just kind of been a constant throughout the year. You know, it may be an exaggeration to say 1 or 2 moves a week, But it may not be an exaggeration to say 1 or 2 moves a week. It's just that I have no other way to describe it than that concept of a slow trickle in terms of movement. So looking at the numbers overall, the number in parentheses is how we started the year this goes back to September 10th. I took these dates from our meeting, I think it was September 10th, our first meeting in September, the number of families that had chosen to go remote. So, as an example, kindergarten at the beginning of the year was 20, it's currently 16. 4th grade, I won't read them all to you, 4th grade was 21, now it's 22. Obviously, looking at the numbers, you can see that where the increase has been has actually been at the middle high school level. Particularly in grade 12, interestingly enough, and then also at the middle school level, kind of a little consistent 6, 7, 8, 9. We've had that growth and that transition. So as I said, a couple of the members of the committee had asked to see an update on the numbers, and with that, I'll take any questions people have about the numbers in terms of where we stand. And I guess I don't have like a takeaway from this, besides that whole concept of it's just been a consistent thing that's been happening in both directions, students moving in and students moving out.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments for Scott on the enrollment data so far? Through my list. Stephanie.
I just wanted to say thank you, Scott. I think this data is very helpful in knowing where the students stand. Now, is it still taking the 2 weeks to transition kids between models?
What we're telling people is it takes 2 weeks to transition. Obviously, if we can do it sooner than that, we are. So, we're talking to the administration, we're talking to the teachers who are involved, and if we can do it sooner than that, we are allowing it. But in essence, if you call anybody who's looking to make a change or transition, we're asking to contact the central office. When it comes to central office, we're saying, it can take up to 2 weeks to transition. We'll be in contact with the schools. The schools will reach out to you and then make a formalized plan with you in terms of when that transition will occur. I would say most are happening in less than 2 weeks, but some may be as long as 2 weeks. And none of them are like happening the next day. So it's not like someone's calling us and the next day they're in their new model. But so it's really from a couple days to 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate the data.
Okay. Don't see anybody else with their hand up. Okay, thank you, Scott, for that report. I appreciate it. Going on to item E, biweekly metrics, which includes weekly metrics, to Department of Public Health report from 121, attendance tracking, and COVID dashboard.
And I actually added in a thing from the WCVB website, which I think has some interesting graphs to look at. And it pulls its data right from the weekly report. So I'll spend less time kind of looking at that weekly report because a lot of the data in the other documents actually gets pulled from that weekly report. But I'll go through them all as people want to. As you know, we are still seeing a rise in cases right now in the Carver community. So this is from the Carver Board of Health, from their post on January 21st. For the 15th to 21st, for that week period, they had 68 new cases or 68 positive tests over that 1 week, with a home count of representing 58 houses, and currently reporting 80 plus or minus active cases within the Carver community at this time. Those numbers are consistent with what Carver what the state report is reporting. So since the 2 weeks we've met, the state number is based on 14 days. The Carver number is based on 7 days, based on a week. So the state is reporting 108 positive tests over a 2 week period ending January 14th, 106 positive tests in a 2 week period ending January 21st, which the reality is those are our two highest numbers that Carver's had. So the last 2 weeks, we've had the most positive cases in the community of Carver. And the Board of Health numbers support that as well. And the reality is the school numbers support that. So, later on, as we talk about transition models, I'm going to reference that, within the school system, since we last met as a school committee, we've had 26 positive cases. 20 students, 13 at the middle high school, 7 at the elementary school, 6 staff members, 5 at the middle high school, 1 at the elementary school, which we're going to see in some of the other data is the most cases we've actually had over a 2-week span. So what's happening in the schools is consistent with what's happening in the community as a whole. I'll show these quickly, and if someone wants to stop and look at another town, it's obviously the same trend, and that was our original. We looked at to see if we were seeing the same trend data, and we are. So, other communities are also seeing the highest number of tests they've had over the last couple of weeks. Though several districts, and I will notice for Carver, our positivity rate was down. So our positivity percentage was 8.77, which is lower than it's been the last couple weeks, and that's true across the other communities you look at. Most people still have a high case count, a high number of positive tests, still probably have the highest number of positive tests over the last 2 weeks that they've had at any time, but the percentage of positivity is down a little bit. And that's probably just an example of probably more people being tested. Because if you look at the number of people who were tested over that time, you're looking at Middleborough, they had 3,479 people tested over a 2-week period, which is the most they ever had over any 2-week period. So all this data for each of the area communities is very consistent. Plimpton was in the red for the first time on this last report. Plymouth continues to be in the red. Again, very similar numbers and representation of the numbers being the highest over the last 2 weeks. So as of right now, the last 2 weeks throughout the area has really hopefully been, I'm hoping it's the high watermark, that we've reached our high watermark and we're going to start trending in the other direction a little bit. So any questions about these numbers before we go on to the next report?
I don't see anybody.
Okay.
I don't see anybody, Scott.
I'm going to go to the attendance tracking document, and we can come back to the weekly report, but I'm going to a lot of the data on the WCVB website is also on the weekly tracking report. We can go to that as well. And again, in terms of school impact, there we go. You can really see over the last 2 weeks, we've had our highest number of COVID students. Now remember on this report, this number represents the number of students who were active cases on that day. So I said over the last 2 weeks in total, we've had 20 students who've tested positive. So on the days that are represented here, so on January 21st, there were 15 active positive cases who are out of school. And then same for the staff and same for the number of people in quarantine. And actually looking at today, today was a little bit of a tough day for us staff-wise. So if you look over here, we actually had our highest number of total staff. We had 18 staff members who were either positive or out as close contacts. Now I know we closed at the middle high school a couple weeks ago, and that was when we had this number, that 19, which I guess is one more than 18. So today wasn't the highest. I did bad math there. I apologize. It was close. But we ended up closing at the middle high school at this time because our quarantine kids were really much higher than they are now, and most of them were at the middle high school. And on this date, most of the staff was at the middle high school. Today was actually pretty evenly distributed. So we had 11 staff members, 18 represented here, then we had 3 other staff members out for other reasons. Either they're sick and they're not officially COVID or in quarantine yet, could have possibly had a personal day. But we had 22 staff members out today. And it was even. We had 11 in each building. So we had 11 staff members out at the middle high school. We had 11 staff members out at the elementary school today. And I'll be very direct and say it was hard to cover 11 staff members in each building. We did it. And 18 of those 22 were directly related to COVID, either as close contacts or as positive cases. And so, that becomes the concern, as you go forward, as you start talking about any kind of transitioning, whether it be, transition specifically to any kind of an in-person model. These 26 cases that we've had over the last 2 weeks among staff and students, many of those cases we didn't have close contacts, either because the people who tested positive, and we've discussed this before, were already close contacts to someone outside of school, so they weren't in school, or they weren't in school because of the hybrid model. And if we had been in a full in-person model, all these numbers would have been higher. We would have had more people as close contacts, we would have had more students as close contacts, and that's the concern right now, from my perspective, of where we are in terms of numbers. That any kind of transitioning to an in-person model would make it very difficult for us to stay open, because we're just going to have, if it was consistent with these numbers, we're going to have a hard time in terms of staff and students who are quarantined. And that's what we talked about a couple weeks ago when we ended up going remote to middle high school for a week. We just said we reached a threshold in terms of staff and students who are quarantined, that for continuity of education, it made more sense to be remote for that week than to be in person. And so, really the last 2 weeks in the school community, which you all know because you're getting my emails every day saying that we have a positive staff member. The good news was I did not send an email today. So I had no positive student or staff member reported to me in the Carver Public Schools today. So no one received an email today. So you all know that what's happening in the schools right now is consistent and reflective of what's happening in the larger community. COVID dashboard is going to get a little repetitive, the same types of numbers. The dashboard only does get updated on Tuesdays and Fridays. This is last Friday's numbers, so we did have a positive case with some close contacts over the weekend, so it's not totally reflective of where we stand today. But it is as of the end of the day on Friday. You can see here that it's a little more balanced in terms of the number of active cases and close contacts among staff and students at both buildings. And that's that comparative point too that I was mentioning earlier, when the middle high school went remote 2 weeks ago now, that really it was much more concentrated at the middle high school, and the elementary school numbers were pretty good. Right now we're a little more balanced. I will say our numbers at the elementary school are going to improve tomorrow. We have several staff members who are ending their isolation or quarantine. I think it's 6 or 7 of the staff member who are currently quarantined will be able to return to school tomorrow. So we won't have 11 staff members out at the elementary school tomorrow. So we're trending in the right direction there. So any questions about the dashboard, attendance, overall impact of our numbers in the school community in comparison to the larger Carver community?
Hold on, Scott. Jason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, Scott. Can you go back to the one before that, the attendance tracking? Yeah. Can you explain the all staff percentage? How is that number?
It's just a straight number of the number of employees in the district and how many were at work. So 90% of our employees, even though we had 22 people out, 11 in each building, district-wide, 90% of the staff was in attendance today.
I guess maybe it was a formula error, but look at the 15th. You had one more staff out, but 97% in.
It's possible.
Which is like the numbers aren't adding up there. That's why I was getting confused with what's looking here.
It's possible the teachers are marked as virtually present.
Got it. Okay.
The teacher is at home.
Then it counts for they're there.
Right. So, for example, on those dates, we were remote as a district. And this actually, Jason's actually a good point because it belies the point I was making about continuity.
Right.
So when the middle high school was remote that time, We were identifying those staff members as officially quarantined. We had 16 staff members who were quarantined. But most of those 16 staff members, I don't know the exact number. I can't say that it was all 16. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Remotely.
Okay. But most of those staff members were teaching because we were remote. So so if you're able to work, we mark you as virtually present.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Makes sense? Yep.
Yeah, I got it.
Anybody else have any questions so far or comments? Seeing none. Okay, Scott.
Now, as I said, a lot of what we look at in the other reports gets pulled from this, and they've watered this report down a little bit, kind of the weekly report. It really is just town by town, which we pull out in the weekly metrics. As we talked about before, they've pulled the maps out of here, so there's no more maps of what it looks like. And the numbers we looked at this last time was just the number of people in quarantine in the state. Which is currently, as of this report, there are 20,108 individuals statewide who are quarantined. And then this report now gets into very specific data about clusters, where clusters are occurring, and obviously household is where the largest number of clusters that the state's identifying as occurring versus other settings. Obviously we've talked about this before. The school is actually, K-12 schools is actually a lower number in terms of clusters that are occurring. But really the clear number there is household. It's, household passage is where this is occurring. And then this report gets very detailed into specific facilities, nursing homes, in terms of the work they're doing, which really isn't necessarily applicable to us. So this report has kind of changed a little bit from when we first started looking at it. And we really pull the key data out of it and put it into other reports. The one thing I wanted to show you, which I do think is this is just the WCVB website, and they take this data, same thing right from the state report, and they update this daily. And one thing that I find interesting in looking at this, sometimes it takes a second to load. We have to give it a second. It's taking a lot of seconds to load. I'll try it again, see if we can refresh it. Let's try this. If you cannot see the maps and charts, click here.
Scott, sometimes when you screen share, it doesn't let things load.
Yeah.
It's going slow.
So sorry about that. So I won't be able to use this because we're not, it's loading very slowly. It is loading, but it's loading very slowly. So what I was going to show you here, which I just think is interesting, is I think they have a nice graph in terms of the comparison of the number of cases. So this is throughout the pandemic in the state of Massachusetts. And I think people know this, but I find this very interesting in terms of, they're tracking, if you actually look back at April and May when we were closed, at that time, the height was, the 7-day average was 2,217 new cases. When you look at now, numbers are trending down. So for the week ending January 21st, it was 3,316 was the 7-day average for number of new cases. And it reached its peak on January 8th, the 7-day average of 6,236 new cases. So I think people realize this, but we have so much more actually active COVID at this time than we did back when we were in the total shutdown in April and May. But the interesting data of a point of comparison is I do think, obviously it's affecting younger people, It's affecting students more. It's affecting younger adults more. And see if my other graph loads. It's loading very slowly. They do keep the map. Here's the map. You can see that all of southeastern Mass is red. Plimpton was the lone standout. They were the lone community that was yellow, and now they have gone red as well. And is this the one I want to get to? The hospitalization one. I think this is an interesting comparison. So when you look at cases versus hospitalizations, so if you look back at when we were at the original closure back in April and May, hospitalizations were much higher. So even though there's a lot more active cases now, the hospitalization numbers are down in comparison to where they were in the early spring. And I think it's because, and again, I'm not trying to draw any conclusions per se. I just think it's interesting data to look at. And this is the type of stuff we're looking at all the time in terms of as we make decisions as a school district. And I think it's because this is, it's a younger population. At this time, it was an older population. I did hear today that they were happy that in terms of number of patients hospitalized in Massachusetts fell under 2,000 for the first time since December 20th. So it's been over a month that the number of patients in hospitals were over 2,000. So this data is actually showing, at least over the last week, numbers are trending down a little bit. Hospitalizations are trending down. And hopefully, like I said, we've kind of reached the crest of the wave, and hopefully we'll see things start trending in the right direction.
Scott, can you scroll down a little bit on that?
I just closed and I killed myself.
All right.
Because now the other one's loading up slowly.
It's all right. It's okay.
But just also, I think this is, I think WCVB, they've been doing this since the beginning. I think they keep they update this daily. I think they have some great information to look at on this page. So any other questions on any of the numbers?
Let's see, hold on. I don't see anybody. Okay, what I was going to comment on was that the entire event timeline, and it showed, what, 285 people in the entirety since last February ended up on a ventilator. I wanted to see if there was a number of total hospitalizations, but it was gone. But I just thought that was interesting.
So this is as of today. So this
418.
Yeah, so this is as of today. There's 418 patients in intensive care throughout Massachusetts. There's 285 patients on ventilators. They track this data daily.
So is that of today, as of today right now? Is that
yes, I believe this was as of yesterday.
Okay, so that's not the entirety, because we were looking at the entirety from the spring on. All right, I thought that was representative.
I look at it all the time. So we were looking at this. This doesn't give you all time how many people were on ventilators.
It doesn't change those numbers. Okay, that's why I was.
Day by day, it gives you. So on April 21st, there were 842 people on a ventilator.
Okay.
So you can actually take it day by day and pick any day since the start, since they're tracking this.
All right.
People on ventilators. But
it seemed low, but yeah, that's why I was asking to ask about it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute on that, or any questions? Okay, seeing none. Okay, Scott, thank you for that.
So
we go to item F, possible vote on transitioning models.
So I apologize for being a little repetitive here because I've already mentioned this a little bit, but at our last meeting, we spoke specifically about having this as an agenda item about transitioning models. At this time, my recommendation would be to stay the course in the hybrid model. With the current level of cases in the community, I cannot support transitioning students to full in-person at 6 feet of social distancing. And this is where it gets a little repetitive, but I want to restate my position on this. Since our last meeting 2 weeks ago, we've had 20 students and 6 staff members test positive for COVID-19. The number of close contacts in these situations certainly would have been larger in a full in-person model. In many of those 26 cases, we had no close contacts in the school community because people were already identified as close contacts outside of school, or because students were not in school during their infectious period as a result of being in the hybrid model. I do think we'll be able to maintain in the hybrid model. Overall, I think it's worked for us from a health and safety perspective and does still provide students with important in-person opportunities. Hopefully we've reached the second peak. The cases will begin to trend downward, and that we could consider returning students more in person as we move in that direction, as vaccinations come out and more of the population becomes vaccinated. Hopefully that's the direction we're going to be able to move in. But at this time, my recommendation would be to stay the course in the hybrid model.
All right, thank you, Scott. I added this on the agenda for a possible vote because we did, as Scott said, we did talk about this not only at our last meeting, but going all the way back, I think to the end of November or beginning of December, that we were going to put off talking about a possible vote until sometime in January. So just to be clear on this, if someone does want to make a motion to change where we are right now in our education model, you can do that. If there is no motion, we will stay status quo in the hybrid model that we are in right now. So saying that, I would see if anybody would like to make a motion to change anything, or I guess that would be it. We go online. Seeing nobody. Okay. All right, so we'll take no action on item F. We will stay in the hybrid model. Stay status quo. All right, recommendations from the superintendent.
We do not have any budget transfers for tonight. We had it on the agenda. Brad was considering whether we needed to do some this evening. He made a determination that we don't. I'm sure we'll have some budget transfers at our next meeting, so we can table this item.
Okay. Do we need a vote to table this, or just does we? There's nothing there.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Reports from the school committee. We are at the end. Would anybody like to make a comment before we adjourn and go to executive session? You look. Oh, there we go. It's easier. Anybody? Would everyone jump at once? All right. I don't see anybody. Okay, I will just say thank you everybody for attending our meeting tonight. We hope our COVID numbers get better. Obviously, we hope people that are well, I hope everybody that is suffering with this right now gets it cleared up very soon, and hope everyone is well, and remains that way. So if no one else has anything, I would take a motion to adjourn to go to executive session, not to return.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. Stephanie Clarity?
Stephanie Clarity, aye.
Jen Pratt?
Jen Pratt, aye.
Jason Greenwood?
Jason Greenwood, aye.
James O'Brien?
James O'Brien, aye.
And Andy Cottarelli is aye as well. It's unanimous. We are adjourned at 8:19. Thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you Area 58 for getting this on the air for us eventually.